Good evening and welcome to NFL Trending. I'm Roger, bringing you the top story dominating the football world tonight. A growing outcry among fans and analysts who say the NFL has shown major bias against Shedeur Sanders, the young quarterback from the Colorado Buffaloes who's now with the Cleveland Browns. In what has become one of the most polarizing debates of the NFL season, Shedeur Sanders supporters are accusing the league, its media affiliates, and even team evaluators of unfairly targeting the quarterback with negative narratives that have hurt his image, draft stock, and early career trajectory. It all started earlier this year when Sanders, once projected as a top pick, shockingly slipped to the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft. For many fans, this wasn't just a draft night surprise. It was proof that something deeper was at play. Across social media platforms, hashtags like #JusticeForShedeur and #NFLLegacyBias began trending within hours of the draft. Supporters claimed that Shedeur's personality, confidence, and outspoken nature were being held against him, while other young quarterbacks were praised for showing the same traits. They argue that Sanders' swagger, something that had defined his college success at Colorado under the leadership of his father, Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, was unfairly reframed as arrogance and immaturity by critics. The controversy grew louder after a Colorado man filed a $100 million lawsuit against the NFL, claiming emotional distress caused by what he described as an organized smear campaign against Shedeur Sanders. The lawsuit accuses the league of creating an environment where biased narratives influence evaluations and draft decisions, ultimately leading to what the fan calls psychological trauma after seeing Sanders' draft slide. While legal experts doubt the lawsuit will go far, its filing has sparked an even bigger discussion, not about the fans' mental health, but about how the NFL treats outspoken young black quarterbacks. Supporters say Shedeur's fall was fueled by perception, not performance. In his final college season, he threw for over 3,000 yards, with an impressive touchdown-to-interception ratio, often carrying a Colorado team that struggled in the trenches. Despite those stats, reports surfaced ahead of the draft describing him as difficult to coach and too focused on image. Fans point to those reports as examples of what they call coded language, subtle forms of bias that have long affected evaluations of black quarterbacks in particular. The argument is that when white quarterbacks display confidence, they're called leaders. When black quarterbacks like Sanders do, they're labeled cocky or arrogant. Even prominent analysts have stepped in to defend Sanders. ESPN's Riddick called the pre-draft treatment of Shedeur a coordinated hit job, criticizing how anonymous sources and scouting leaks painted him as entitled without offering clear evidence. Riddick said on air that Sanders was being judged by double standards and that the kid's confidence is being weaponized against him. Other media personalities have echoed those sentiments, saying the coverage around Sanders often focused more on his watches, jewelry, and family background than on his mechanics, football IQ, or statistical consistency. On the flip side, NFL insiders argue that Sanders' drop in the draft had more to do with his interviews and team fit than with bias. Several teams reportedly found his pre-draft meetings unimpressive, with one scout saying Sanders didn't show much accountability and seemed too focused on his brand. They claim that those factors, combined with questions about his ability to adapt to NFL-level defensive reads, justified his lower selection. Still, that explanation hasn't quieted critics who believe those narratives were blown out of proportion. They argue that similar concerns have been raised about other quarterbacks in the past without the same level of public scrutiny or media backlash. Adding to the storm is Sanders' lineage. Being the son of Deion, primetime Sanders, one of the most iconic and outspoken figures in football history, has magnified everything Shedeur says and does. Supporters say he's being punished for being too much like his father, confident, flashy, and unwilling to conform to the NFL's traditional image of a humble quarterback. Meanwhile, detractors argue that the Sanders brand, with its focus on luxury, social media presence, and celebrity-style promotion, has blurred the line between athlete and influencer. They say the criticism isn't about race or bias, but about professionalism and focus. Regardless of where one stands, the conversation has put the NFL's culture under the microscope once again. From Cam Newton to Lamar Jackson to now Shedeur Sanders, debates over how personality and identity influence perception of quarterbacks continue to resurface year after year. Some analysts believe the controversy could even have long-term implications for how the league handles its scouting and public communications. The idea that media narratives can affect player valuation isn't new, but the Sanders debate has pushed that concern to the forefront in a digital era where every headline and clip can shape perception instantly. For Shedeur himself, the noise has been hard to ignore. Since joining the Cleveland Browns, he's spoken carefully about the situation, saying that while he appreciates his fans' passion, he's more focused on proving himself on the field. In a recent press conference, Sanders said, "People can say what they want, but I control my work. I'm here to win games, not arguments." That response struck a chord with both supporters and critics alike. To many fans, it showed maturity and focus. To skeptics, it sounded rehearsed. Another example, they say, of Sanders prioritizing image management. In Cleveland, Sanders faces the challenge of earning respect in a crowded quarterback room and proving he can handle the speed and complexity of the NFL game. Early reports from training camp have been mixed, flashes of brilliance alongside the growing pains you'd expect from a young signal caller. Coaches have praised his arm strength and leadership, but noted that he's still adjusting to pro-style schemes. For now, the spotlight remains as bright as ever. Every throw, every comment, every off-field post is analyzed under a microscope. Fair or not, Sanders' career has become a case study in how public narratives, media coverage, and societal biases can shape the perception of an athlete before they've even had a chance to fully develop. Whether this bias is real or imagined, it has undeniably become part of Shedeur Sanders' story, one that mirrors his father's battles against doubters and detractors decades earlier. As the season progresses, his performance will likely determine which narrative wins: the story of a young quarterback unfairly judged by bias, or that of a talented but unproven player still finding his way. What's certain is that the conversation isn't going away. Shedeur Sanders' name has become bigger than the game, a symbol of how the NFL's old guard and new generation continue to clash over identity, image, and what it means to be a leader in the modern era. And as long as that tension exists, the debate over bias, fair or otherwise, will remain one of the NFL's most controversial talking points. I'm Roger, and this has been NFL Trending. Stay tuned for more updates and deep dives into the biggest stories shaping football today.